People always say I'm the Beatle who changed the most, but really that's what I see life is about. That the planet is in the control of mad people. The soul is in this body for a period of time and then it leaves the body. It's like, in a way, the body is like a suit.
You work very hard to take care of your dad's legacy. I know that's a big, that you do so much work to take care, to preserve his music, to make sure that it's presented properly.
It's a labor of love, and you know, we made music together, we talked a lot about stuff.
Imagine finding a secret about George Harrison through his son, Dhani Harrison. What if this secret could change how we see the legendary musician forever? In today's video, we will explore Dhani Harrison's touching revelation of unreleased songs left behind by his father. Let's find the emotional impact of these tracks on fans, the legacy of George Harrison, and the deep connections that last within his family. George Harrison was not just a member of the Beatles, he was a key force in shaping modern music and investing it with depth through his spiritual quest. Known as the Quiet Beatle, George brought a unique mix of sounds influenced by Indian culture and spiritually to Western pop music, pioneering the integration of world music elements into rock and roll. George's journey into spirituality began earnestly during the height of the Beatles' fame, leading him to embrace Hinduism, which profoundly influenced his music and lifestyle. Songs like Within You, Without You, and My Sweet Lord not only showcased his exceptional talent as a songwriter and musician, but also his deep yearnings for spiritual meaning, which resonated with millions around the world. These tracks stood out, bridging cultural and musical divides with their rich, reflective melodies and introspective lyrics. Apart from his music, George's legacy is also marked by his quiet yet impactful humanitarian efforts. He organized the Concert for Bangladesh in 1971, one of the first major charity rock concerts, which set a precedent for future humanitarian fundraising events in the music industry. His dedication to his beliefs and his willingness to use his fame for the betterment of humanity left a lasting impression. George was also a prolific gardener, a passion that reflected his spiritual life. He saw gardening as a form of meditation and a way to stay grounded. His estate, Friar Park, was a testament to his love for horticulture, featuring sprawling gardens that he tended to with great care. Despite his passing in 2001, George Harrison's influence persists. His approach to music and life continues to inspire artists and fans alike, drawing them towards a path of introspection and exploration. His work has survived him, still striking chords with those who seek more than just a catchy tune. But how does a son manage with such a high legacy? Born on August 1st, 1978, Dhani Harrison grew up in an environment filled with songs, creativity, and a legacy that could easily overshadow most children. As the only child of George and Olivia Harrison, Dhani was gently introduced to the world of music and culture. His father, a man of few words yet abundant wisdom, influenced Dhani's upbringing with his unique philosophies on spirituality, creativity, and humility. Dhani's early childhood was spent in the comforting atmosphere of Friar Park, George's expansive estate in Henley-on-Thames. The estate served as a sanctuary where Dhani witnessed his father's passion for gardening and music, providing a place to nurture his interests and creativity. Friar Park was filled with the sound of strumming guitars and the laughter of friends, giving Dhani an early appreciation for the creative process. Yet growing up as the son of a Beatle came with its own set of challenges. George's fame meant that Dhani was often in the public eye, even as a young child. He learned to navigate this attention gracefully, always striving to be his person rather than a shadow of his father's legacy. Despite George's towering presence, Dhani was encouraged to follow his path, a testament to George's humble approach to parenting. Music became an inevitable part of Dhani's life, and George subtly encouraged his son's burgeoning interest in the art. Dhani learned to play guitar from his father and showed an early aptitude for rhythm and composition. George never pressured him into a music career, instead offering gentle guidance and allowing Dhani to find his creative voice. As Dhani grew older, he was increasingly curious about the work his father left behind. The huge catalog of music, writings, and personal insights provided a window into George's mind, a treasure trove of artistic wisdom. This curiosity became a driving force in Dhani's life, and he gradually took on the role of caretaker for his father's legacy. He sought to preserve George's music and message for future generations, feeling an inherent responsibility to honor his father's work while developing his own artistic identity. As Dhani grew, so did his curiosity about his father's work. What did he find? One of the most fascinating chapters in the life of Dhani Harrison began with the discovery of a collection of unfinished tracks left by his father, George Harrison. These pieces, hidden away in the libraries of Friar Park, were sketches of songs and songs that George had not completed before his passing in 2001. For Dhani, struggling with these musical pieces was akin to finding a hidden map of his father's creative soul. Dhani, deeply moved and inspired by these discoveries, faced a significant decision. Should these unfinished symphonies remain private as a personal legacy between father and son, or should they be shared with the world? After much consideration and discussion with the family and close friends of George, Dhani decided it was time to bring these works into the light. The task was daunting. Dhani approached it with a mix of reverence and a sense of duty, knowing that each note and lyric was a piece of his father's heart. With care, he began the delicate process of completing these songs. He enlisted the help of musicians who had worked closely with George, including Jeff Lynne and other members of the Traveling Wilburys, ensuring that the essence of George's musical intentions was preserved. The work was more than just a son completing his father's sentences. It was a bridge between generations, a conversation between Dhani and George that transcended time and space. Dhani immersed himself in the project, using his musical talents to respectfully finish the songs, blending his father's classic sound with his modern sensibilities. The process was a profound journey for Dhani, bringing him even closer to understanding George not just as a global icon, but as a father and a human being with the deep, unfulfilled aspirations. Finally, the tracks were ready to be heard. Dhani chose to first introduce them through a carefully planned listening event, inviting family, friends, and a select group of music critics. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and the decision was made to release them to the public, packaged as a part of a post-mortem album called The Apple Years. What was the fan reaction to discovering these hidden treasures? When Dhani Harrison finally decided to share his father's unfinished tracks with the world, the reception from fans was varied, as is often the case with posthumous releases. The immediate reaction was one of immense excitement from dedicated fans. For many, this new collection represented a chance to experience George Harrison's creativity once more and to feel connected to the musical spirit that had inspired generations. Longtime fans viewed these tracks as a beautiful extension of George's legacy, marveling at the intricate melodies and lyrics that revealed his soul. To them, it felt like unearthing buried treasure, a chance to explore his thoughts, emotions, and philosophies through music that had never seen the light of day. The prospect of hearing new material was like welcoming back an old friend. However, there were skeptics as well. Some were concerned that these tracks, initially unfinished, might not reflect George's final intentions and could be altered in a way that would distort his vision. They worried that Dhani and his collaborators might unintentionally stray away from the authenticity of George's work. Posthumous releases have often been scrutinized for potential commercialization or being a way to profit off a deceased artist's legacy. Despite these mixed initial reactions, most fans recognize Dhani's deep respect for his father's legacy. The carefully curated album not only preserved the essence of George's music, but also brought forth a new perspective thanks to Dhani's input and personal connection. The combination of George's distinctive voice and Dhani's complementary arrangements produced a balanced mix that felt both familiar and fresh. The album's release sparked conversations among critics and musicians alike. They praised the combination of classic and contemporary elements, noting how it felt like a seamless continuation of George's work. Some were particularly impressed with how Dhani remained true to his father's spirit while carefully weaving in his interpretations. This musical dialogue between generations created a sad resonance that spoke to many listeners. Beyond individual reactions, the album had a broader cultural impact. It renewed interest in George Harrison's body of work and introduced a new generation to his music. The new songs encouraged fans to revisit older albums, leading to a renewed appreciation for George's unique combination of spirituality, humor, and creative expression. In the end, Dhani's decision to share these tracks honored not just his father, but also the enduring bond that music creates among generations. He carefully walked the fine line between preserving a legacy and adding new layers to it. Dhani's profound love for his father shone through in every note, providing fans with a rare and moving glimpse into their relationship. Yet, how does Dhani truly feel about these songs and their release? Dhani Harrison approached his father's music with deep reverence. Growing up as George Harrison's son meant being constantly surrounded by songs, guitars, and lyrics that intertwined with everyday life. His father's music provided warmth and wisdom during his early years, even before he fully understood its significance. When he struggled upon his father's unfinished tracks, Dhani stood at an emotional crossroads. The discovery was a precious gift, a way to reconnect with George and share memories. But it was also a challenge as he felt the weight of his father's legacy. He knew doing justice to these tracks required navigating his emotional landscape. Listening to each track, Dhani could almost hear his father's voice guiding him, not just as a musician, but as a son. Certain tunes transported him to touching family moments, and the music felt like a secret conversation between father and son. George's lyrics left a trail for Dhani to follow. Editing and finishing the track was a labor of love and loss. Each note expressed both grief and gratitude, digging up old memories but also offering comfort in knowing that George's voice would be heard once again. Dhani aimed to preserve George's spirit while adding his talent to the arrangements. The fans resounded deeply with this emotional journey. The new music enabled a community that understood the powerful bond between father and son. Their support encouraged Dhani to be vulnerable, let the music speak for itself, and create a space where people could celebrate George's legacy together. Despite this deep connection to the past, Dhani worked to maintain his own identity. He sought to forge his path while balancing the legacy of his surname. He recognized comparisons with George would be inevitable, but he also wanted his music to shine through. His band, the New Number 2, allowed him to explore modern sounds and find his voice. Even while collecting George's post-mortem album, he continued developing his music, keeping his creative fire alive. With such deep connections to his past, how does Dhani maintain his own identity? Being George Harrison's son came with its own set of unique challenges for Dhani. From an early age, he was thrust into the world of music royalty. On one side, he was surrounded by remarkable talent and deeply rooted in a legacy of creativity and spiritual exploration. On the other, he faced the enormous task of preserving that legacy while also finding and expressing his voice. The public expectations were massive. Fans of George Harrison, particularly those that saw him as a musical and spiritual guide, had strong opinions on how George's unreleased tracks should be handled. For Dhani, it wasn't just about releasing the songs, it was about doing it in a way that honored his father's memory. Every decision had to consider George's creative vision while guiding the emotional complexities of interpreting incomplete work. Moreover, Dhani faced the pressure of stepping into his father's shoes as a musician. The comparisons to George's work could sometimes overshadow Dhani's contributions, and striking a balance between familial tribute and personal creativity was a constant challenge. His desire to protect George's legacy required an immense emotional investment, yet he remained committed to distinguishing himself as an artist in his own right. The scrutiny often went beyond the music himself. Fans and media watched Dhani's every move, and their assumptions and expectations could weigh heavily. Despite this, Dhani stayed grounded. He understood that the legacy he was upholding was more than just a collection of songs, it was a symbol of his father's deep connection to the world. He aimed to preserve that connection while letting his creativity bloom. Dhani faced challenges in understanding and navigating the complexities of post-mortem releases, both logistically and emotionally. He worked closely with engineers and collaborators to ensure that the final product would reflect George's intentions while adapting to modern musical tastes. The painstaking process required patience and humility, traits that Dhani had learned from his father. He knew that not all listeners would agree with the creative decisions he made, but Dhani took comfort in knowing that he approached the project with sincerity and love. He believed that releasing these tracks could offer comfort to fans and create a bridge between the past and present, inviting listeners to reconnect with the spirit of George Harrison. But beyond the challenges and pressures, there was joy in this work. For Dhani, this journey was not just a professional obligation, it was an act of devotion. It was a way to cherish memories of his father, to share the music that had shaped his own life, and to invite new generations to appreciate George's art. But what does the future hold for these unreleased tracks? Looking ahead, the possibilities surrounding George Harrison's unreleased tracks are both exciting and open to interpretation. Dhani Harrison, having meticulously gone through his father's archives, understands that the songs hold a lot of potential for future projects. But how will these tracks be presented, and who might be involved in bringing them to life? Dhani envisions collaborative projects that could highlight George's unfinished work while maintaining the authenticity of his father's vision. He has hinted at the possibility of inviting other renowned artists to reinterpret George's unreleased material. Such collaborations could offer a fresh perspective and help introduce George's legacy to younger audiences. The plan is to craft these tracks into cohesive musical projects that appeal to both loyal fans and new listeners. Another potential direction lies in expanding the family legacy into a multimedia format. The songs could inspire documentaries, video compilations, or even immersive concert experiences where George's voice and spirit are brought to life through modern technology. The idea is to give audiences a window into George's creative process while ensuring the new productions respect the original essence of his music. However, Dhani also recognizes that it's not just about keeping George's memory alive, it's about promoting and developing the creative legacy that his father left behind, and that includes making space for Dhani's musical contributions. He's aware that his father's work and his own should coexist harmoniously rather than compete for attention. In approaching these projects, Dhani is careful not to exploit the music for commercial gain. The goal is to offer something meaningful that resonates with George's ethos and dedication to spiritual enlightenment. As a result, these projects will likely emphasize charity or awareness for causes that George supported, ensuring that the releases do more than just entertain, they'll inspire positive change. Dhani isn't the only one contemplating how to best honor his father's work. Other members of the Beatles' extended families have also shown support for posthumous releases that bring joy to their fans. Olivia Harrison, George's widow, is actively involved in managing these projects, ensuring that the music is released thoughtfully and appropriately. Similarly, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr's family view this revival of George's music as a wonderful way to reconnect with a rich musical heritage. They are excited to see George's legacy continue to grow and reach new listeners. Ultimately, the future of George's unreleased music holds many possibilities, with Dhani at the helm navigating these creative projects with care. His vision involves connecting with both longtime and future fans while ensuring that his father's legacy is presented in a way that maintains true to George's creative principles. How do other Beatles family members view these developments? The families of other Beatles members have expressed strong support for Dhani Harrison's journey to preserve and share his father's legacy. Paul McCartney, known for his enduring friendship with George Harrison, is enthusiastic about the idea of posthumous releases. He believes that George's work should continue to inspire generations, noting that fans deserve the joy of discovering more of George's spirit through his unreleased songs. Meanwhile, Ringo Starr's family has also voiced their encouragement. As one of the closest people to George during the band's peak, Ringo always appreciated George's dedication to music. His family recognizes the profound impact of these tracks and is thrilled that new generations of listeners will be able to hear them. Olivia Harrison, George's widow, and Dhani's mother, is particularly invested in upholding her husband's legacy. She views the unreleased music as more than just songs, they're memories that capture George's creative brilliance. Olivia actively collaborates with Dhani to ensure that these revelations come to light thoughtfully, preserving George's authenticity and kindness. Yoko Ono and Sean Lennon, representing John Lennon's side of the Beatles' legacy, are similarly intrigued by these revelations. They value the creative spirit that George represented and believe that Dhani's stewardship will only strengthen the Beatles' legacy. In the end, the broader Beatles family recognizes the importance of these post-mortem projects. They believe the releases will create a continued interest in not just George Harrison's work, but in the spirit of creativity and exploration that defined the Beatles as a whole. As we've seen today, the line between past and future is beautifully blurred in the world of music, especially with legacies as rich as George Harrison's. His unreleased tracks hold the promise of new stories and emotions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Share your thoughts in the comments below.